I'd like to access VIP services, please.
Audrey said calmly.
VP?
He looked her up and down.
This counter is for people with real money. Not some filthy black woman in dollar store shoes.
Sir, I have an account.
You have nothing.
He leaned in close.
You people disgust me. You walk in here smelling like the bus, touching everything, pretending you belong. You don't. You never will. Remove her. She's contaminating my VIP section.
Audrey didn't move. She reached for her phone. In 10 minutes, that VIP counter and every square inch of that branch would belong to her. Who the hell let you pass the front door? Gerald Hayes stepped out from behind the VIP counter and blocked the rope. I'd like to access VIP services, please, Audrey said calmly. VIP? He looked her up and down. This counter is for people with real money, not some filthy black woman in dollar store shoes. Sir, I have an account. You have nothing. He leaned in close. You people disgust me. You walk in here smelling like the bus, touching everything, pretending you belong. You don't. You never will. He waved to security. Remove her. She's contaminating my VIP section. Audrey didn't move. She reached for her phone. In 10 minutes, that VIP counter and every square inch of that branch would belong to her. 3 hours earlier, Audrey Carter sat in the kitchen of her downtown penthouse, drinking black coffee from a chipped mug she'd owned since college. No housekeeper, no personal chef, just a woman in sneakers and the plain gray jacket, reading earnings reports on her phone. Most people who controlled a $4 billion financial empire didn't dress like they were running errands. Audrey did. She'd built Meridian Capital Group from a single consulting contract 12 years ago. Now it owns stakes in 14 regional banks, 2 insurance firms, and a commercial real estate portfolio that stretched across the eastern seaboard. But nobody on the street would know that by looking at her. She grabbed her car keys. A 6-year-old Honda Civic sat in the garage next to a black Mercedes she never drove, and headed to Whitfield & Associates, the oldest private banking branch in the city's financial district. The building sat on the corner of Madison and 10th. Limestone columns framed the entrance. Brass letters spelled the name above the revolving door. Inside, the lobby smelled of leather and fresh lilies. Italian marble covered every surface. A crystal chandelier hung from the double-height ceiling, casting soft gold light across rows of mahogany desks. Oil paintings of former bank presidents lined the east wall, all men, all white, all staring down with the same thin-lipped authority. This was a place designed to make certain people feel welcome, and certain people feel watched. Audrey pushed through the revolving door at 9:45. The security guard, a broad man named Rick, glanced at her sneakers, then at her jacket, then looked away. No greeting, no smile. He adjusted his belt and returned to his phone. 2 women in silk blouses walked in behind Audrey. Rick nodded to them immediately, held the inner door open. At the reception desk, a young woman named Megan sorted paperwork without looking up. Audrey stood there for 11 seconds before clearing her throat. Good morning. I have a 10 o'clock with the branch manager. Megan's eyes flicked up, then down, then up again, slower this time, scanning. Do you have a confirmation number? I do. Audrey slid her phone across the counter. The screen showed the appointment confirmation. Megan studied it like she was checking for forgery. She typed something, typed again, picked up the desk phone and whispered into it with her hand cupped over the receiver. Have a seat, she finally said. Someone will be with you. No, ma'am. No, right this way. Just a plastic chair by the window next to the water cooler. Audrey sat. She crossed her ankles. She watched. Across the lobby, a white couple in matching cashmere coats walked in. Megan stood up immediately, smiled wide, offered sparkling water, escorted them personally to the VIP lounge behind frosted glass doors. Audrey noted the time. 9:48. The VIP lounge had its own entrance, its own teller window, and its own manager, Gerald Hayes. 46 years old, 12 years at Whitfield & Associates. He'd climbed the ranks not through innovation or leadership, but through one simple skill, making wealthy white clients feel like royalty. Gerald wore a navy suit with a silver tie pin. His shoes were polished to a mirror finish. His smile appeared and disappeared like a switch, on for clients who looked the part, off for everyone else. His handshake was firm for men in Rolexes, limp for everyone below. He laughed loudly with the cashmere couple, poured them coffee from a French press, pulled out a leather portfolio, and spread documents across a glass table. At 9:52, Gerald stepped out of the VIP lounge. He crossed the lobby to refill his coffee at the executive machine near reception. He walked directly past Audrey without a glance. She might as well have been furniture. On his way back, he paused, not to greet her, to examine her. His eyes moved from her sneakers to her jacket to her hands. No rings, no watch, no designer bag. He turned to Megan and said, loud enough for Audrey to hear, "Who's the 10 o'clock?" Megan pointed at her screen and whispered. Gerald looked at Audrey again. His upper lip curled, just slightly, just enough. "Send her over in 5 minutes," he said. "I'll deal with it." He didn't say, deal with her. He said, deal with it. Like a stain on the carpet. Like a problem to be cleaned. Audrey heard every word. She uncrossed her ankles, straightened her jacket, and waited. The clock on the wall ticked toward 10. At exactly 10 o'clock, Megan walked over to Audrey's plastic chair. "He'll see you now." She didn't escort Audrey to the VIP lounge. She pointed. Then she turned around and went back to her desk. Audrey stood, smoothed her jacket, and walked toward the frosted glass doors. The cashmere couple was leaving. The woman glanced at Audrey and pulled her handbag closer to her body, a reflex so practiced it looked almost graceful. The man didn't look at all. He looked through her, the way people look through walls. Gerald Hayes sat behind a glass desk in the VIP lounge. His French press was still warm. His leather portfolio lay open, filled with documents from the previous meeting. He didn't stand when Audrey entered. He didn't extend his hand. He didn't even lift his eyes from his screen for the first 5 seconds. "Sit," he said. Not, "Please sit." Not, "Have a seat." Just, sit. Audrey sat in the chair across from him. The leather was cold. The armrests smelled of polish. A small crystal clock on the desk ticked softly between them. On the wall behind Gerald, his framed MBA diploma hung next to a photo of him shaking hands with the regional director. Both men wore the same smile, the kind that only works in one direction. Gerald opened his laptop and typed without looking at her. 10 seconds. 20. 30. He let the silence stretch like a leash. His fingers moved slowly, deliberately slowly, as if whatever was on his screen mattered infinitely more than the woman sitting 3 feet away. Then he closed the laptop. "So, what exactly can I help you with?" His tone said the opposite. His tone said, "Make this quick so I can get back to real clients." "I need to discuss a large account transfer," Audrey said, "and I'd like to review the terms on a portfolio that's held at this branch." Gerald tilted his head. "A large account transfer?" Yes. How large? 8 figures. Gerald stared at her. Then he smiled, not with warmth, but with the kind of amusement a man shows when a child says something ridiculous. 8 figures, he repeated slowly. He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. Ma'am, do you understand what 8 figures means? Because I've sat across from people who manage 8 figures. I've had lunch with them. I've played golf with them. He paused. And not a single one of them has ever walked into my office looking like you. I'd appreciate it if you'd pull up a count ending in 4412, Audrey said. This isn't a check cashing store. This isn't a payday loan office. He gestured around the VIP lounge. The crystal glasses, the walnut bookshelves, the framed certificates on the wall. This is a private banking facility for high net worth individuals. We don't handle whatever it is you think you need handled. He paused, let the sentence land. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, perhaps one of the general tellers can point you toward the right kind of institution, something more suited to your situation. The right kind of institution. The phrase was designed to cut without leaving fingerprints. Audrey's expression didn't change. Account 4412, please. Gerald didn't move. He studied her face like he was deciding whether to laugh or call security. I'm going to be honest with you, he said, dropping his voice to something that sounded almost intimate, the way a man speaks when he thinks no one important is listening. I don't know how you got this appointment. I don't know what game you're playing, but I've been managing this branch for 12 years, and I have never, not once, seen someone who looks like you walk in here and ask for 8-figure services. Not once. So either you're confused, or you're running some kind of scam. Either way, we're done. Someone who looks like you. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Audrey kept her hands folded in her lap. Are you refusing to access my account? I'm telling you, this isn't your account. It can't be. Gerald stood up. He buttoned his jacket with one hand and straightened his silver tie pin with the other. I don't know if someone gave you that number or if you found it online, but I'm not pulling up confidential client information for a woman who walked in here wearing sneakers and a jacket from a clearance bin. He stepped around the desk. He was taller than her by 6 inches. He used every one of them. Let me make this very simple for you, he said, looking down at her. You do not belong in this section. You do not belong in this building. And if you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, I will have security escort you out. And I will personally make sure you are flagged in our system so that you can never set foot in any Whitfield branch again. Audrey stood. Slowly. She picked up her phone from the desk and slid it into her jacket pocket. I'd like your full name, please, she said. Gerald laughed, a short, sharp bark that echoed off the glass walls. Gerald Raymond Hayes, branch manager, Whitfield & Associates, Madison Avenue location. He spread his arms wide. Write it down. Tattoo it on your forehead. It won't change a single thing about who you are or where you belong. He walked past her and pushed the frosted glass door open. He held it open, not like a gentleman, but like a man holding a gate for an animal to pass through. Out, he said. Now. Audrey walked through the door. Not fast, not slow. She walked the way someone walks when they already know how the story ends. She stopped in the middle of the lobby. She didn't head for the exit. She stood there, in full view of every teller, every client, every camera mounted in the ceiling corners. Gerald followed her out. He wasn't done. He had an audience now, and audiences made Gerald generous with his cruelty. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the lobby, adjusting his cufflinks, "I apologize for the disruption. We occasionally get people who wander in off the street and don't understand how private banking works." He looked directly at Audrey. "It's been handled." A man at the far desk chuckled. A woman near the door whispered something to her husband and shook her head. The lobby felt like a courtroom that had already decided its verdict. But not everyone was laughing. A regular client, Mrs. Dorothy Whitmore, silver hair, pearl necklace, seated in the waiting area, shifted in her chair. She didn't smile. She didn't whisper. She reached into her handbag and quietly pressed record on her phone. She rested it on her knee, camera facing out, lens steady. Behind the counter, a young teller named Nathan Cole stood frozen. His face had gone white. His fingers gripped the edge of the marble desktop so hard, his knuckles lost all color. He recognized Audrey. He'd seen her photograph exactly once, in an internal memo from corporate 6 weeks ago. A memo about a pending acquisition. A memo that included 3 words that were now burning through his skull. New majority shareholder. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it, then opened it again. "Mr. Hayes," Nathan started. "Not now, Nathan." Gerald didn't turn around. "Sir, I really think you should—" "I said not now." Gerald's voice hit like a door slamming shut. Nathan stepped back. He looked at Audrey across the lobby. She gave no signal, no nod, no glance. She just stood there, hands at her sides, feet planted on the marble floor, perfectly still. Gerald turned to Megan. "Log this incident. Full detail. I want a record showing I asked her to leave voluntarily before we involve security. Name, time, physical description, everything. If she comes back, I want documentation." Megan's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She looked at Audrey. She looked at Gerald. She swallowed hard and began to type. Gerald straightened his jacket. He clasped his hands behind his back. He surveyed the lobby the way a man surveys land he believes he owns. He was smiling. The lobby was quiet, and the quiet felt like agreement, and agreement felt like power. He owned this room. He owned these people. He owned this moment. Or so he believed. Audrey stood perfectly still in the center of the lobby. The marble floor reflected the chandelier light around her feet. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was even. She looked like a woman with absolutely nothing, and absolutely no intention of leaving. Gerald snapped his fingers at Rick. "I told you to remove her 10 minutes ago. Why is she still standing in my lobby?" Rick pushed off the wall and walked toward Audrey. His boots were heavy on the marble. His hand rested on the radio clipped to his belt. "Ma'am," Rick said, "I'm going to need you to come with me." "I'm not leaving," Audrey said. Her voice was calm, flat. The kind of calm that unsettles people who expect a fight. Rick hesitated. He glanced back at Gerald. "Don't look at me," Gerald said. "Look at her. She's trespassing. Do your job." "Sir, she hasn't done anything aggressive. She's refusing to leave a private establishment after being asked by management. That's trespassing. Call it in." Rick unclipped his radio. He pressed the button and spoke into it quietly. The lobby heard fragments. "Non-compliant individual. Requesting police assistance. No physical threat, but refusing to vacate." Gerald heard the words, "no physical threat," and his jaw tightened. "Tell them she was harassing VIP clients," Gerald said, loud enough for the radio to catch. "Tell them she attempted to access confidential financial records using a stolen account number." Audrey's eyes moved to Gerald. For the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not anger, not fear, recognition. The recognition of a woman watching a man dig his own grave with both hands. "That's not true," she said quietly. "It will be when I file the report," Gerald replied. He didn't even lower his voice. Rick finished the call. "They're sending a unit. 5 minutes." "Good." Gerald turned back to the lobby. He was performing now. Every word, every gesture was calculated for the audience sitting in leather chairs and holding porcelain coffee cups. "You see," Gerald said, addressing no one and everyone, "this is exactly the kind of thing that happens when we lower our standards, when we let just anyone walk through the door." He looked at Audrey. "No offense." The phrase, "no offense," sat on top of everything he'd said like a cherry on a pile of garbage. A man in a pinstripe suit near the window nodded. An older gentleman at the investment desk adjusted his glasses and looked down at his newspaper. The practiced retreat of someone who didn't want his silence questioned later. A woman near the door whispered to her husband, "Can you believe she's still standing there?" Her husband whispered back, "Just let them handle it." But Mrs. Dorothy Whitmore hadn't moved. Her phone sat on her knee, still recording. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes followed Gerald like a hawk tracking a rodent across open ground. 3 minutes passed, then 4. The lobby existed in a kind of suspended silence. The hum of the air conditioning, the soft click of Megan's keyboard, the tick of the crystal clock visible through the open VIP door. Audrey stood in the same spot. She hadn't moved an inch. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't cried. She hadn't begged. And that stillness, that absolute, immovable stillness, was starting to unnerve Gerald more than any argument could. He walked closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and sharp, layered over dry-cleaned wool. "You know what your problem is?" he said, his voice dropping to a murmur that only she and the nearest tellers could hear. "You think showing up in a place like this makes you equal. It doesn't. You could walk in here wearing a $1,000 dress and diamond earrings, and you'd still be exactly what you are. Nothing. Nobody. Just another black woman with a chip on her shoulder and an attitude problem, wasting my time on a Monday morning." He leaned in even closer. His breath touched her ear. "And between you and me, the only reason I haven't had Rick drag you out by your arm is because I don't want his hands smelling like whatever bus brought you here." He straightened up and smiled, the smile of a man who believed he had won completely and permanently. At that moment, the front door opened. 2 police officers walked in. The first, Officer Bradley, mid-30s, square jaw, mirrored sunglasses pushed up on his forehead, scanned the lobby and locked onto Audrey immediately. The second officer, younger, hung back near the door with his hand resting on his belt. Gerald intercepted them before they reached her. "Officers, thank you for coming. I'm Gerald Hayes, branch manager." He shook Bradley's hand firmly, the handshake he reserved for men he considered equals. "We have a situation. This woman entered the bank under false pretenses, refused to identify herself properly, attempted to access a VIP client's confidential financial records using what I believe is a stolen account number, and has been refusing to leave for the past 20 minutes. I've asked politely, multiple times." Every sentence was a lie. Every sentence was delivered with the confidence of truth. Officer Bradley looked past Gerald at Audrey. She stood with her hands visible at her sides. No bag, no weapon, no aggression. Nothing in her posture suggested threat. "Ma'am," Bradley said, walking toward her, "can I see some identification?" "Of course." Audrey reached into her jacket pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a slim leather wallet. She handed Bradley her driver's license. Bradley looked at the ID. He read the name. He read it again. His thumb paused on the laminate. Something shifted behind his eyes. A flicker, barely visible, but he kept his face neutral. Professional. "Ms. Carter," he said, "can you tell me your version of what happened here?" "I arrived for a scheduled appointment at 10 a.m. to discuss my account. The branch manager refused to serve me, made several discriminatory remarks based on my race and appearance, called security, and then contacted police while making false statements about my conduct in my presence." She said it all without emotion, like reading the terms on a contract. Gerald stepped forward. "That is absolutely not what happened. She barged in, demanded access to an account that clearly isn't hers." "Sir?" Bradley raised one hand. "I'm talking to her right now." Gerald's mouth snapped shut. A vein in his temple pulsed visibly. Bradley turned back to Audrey. "Do you have proof of an appointment?" Audrey unlocked her phone and showed him the confirmation screen. Bradley studied it. He looked at the name on the appointment. He looked at the name on the ID. They matched perfectly. "And the account she mentioned?" Bradley asked, turning to Gerald. "Ending in 4412. Is that account registered to this branch?" Gerald hesitated. For the first time since Audrey had entered the building, a crack appeared in his composure. I didn't verify it. I didn't need to. It was obvious she wasn't—" "You didn't verify it," Bradley repeated, not a question. "Look, officer, I've been in banking for 12 years. I know what a legitimate VIP client looks like. I can tell within 5 seconds of someone walking through that door whether they belong here or not. And she," he jabbed a finger toward Audrey, "does not." "That's your professional assessment," Bradley said flatly. "Yes, it is." Nathan Cole, still standing behind the counter, gripped the edge of the desk until his fingernails turned white. His mouth was dry. Sweat pooled along his collar and darkened the fabric. He knew what was in account 4412. He knew whose name sat at the top of the ownership documents. And he knew that in about 60 seconds, Gerald Hayes was going to find out too. And that the finding out would be the beginning of the end of everything Gerald had built. Bradley handed the license back to Audrey. He turned to his partner near the door and gave a small shake of his head. The younger officer relaxed his posture and dropped his hand from his belt. "Ma'am," Bradley said, "I don't see grounds to remove you. You have a valid appointment and valid identification. I'd recommend the bank verify your account and proceed with your scheduled meeting." Gerald's face reddened from his collar to his hairline. "You can't be serious. I am telling you, she does not belong here. And I'm telling you to verify the account, Mr. Hayes." Bradley held Gerald's gaze for 3 full seconds. "Unless there's a reason you'd rather not." The lobby was silent. The air conditioning hummed. The chandelier threw tiny rainbows across the marble floor. Every eye in the building, every teller, every client, every officer was on Gerald Hayes. He stood there, jaw locked, fists clenched at his sides, nostrils flaring. For the first time since Audrey had walked through the revolving door, he looked like a man who could feel the ground shifting beneath his polished shoes. But he still didn't check the account. He still didn't walk to his computer. He still believed, with every cell in his body, with every fiber of 12 years of unchallenged authority, that he was right. "Fine," he said through his teeth. "You want to play this game? Fine." He pointed at Audrey with a stiff finger. "But when this turns out to be fraud, and it will, I'm pressing charges against her. And I'll be filing a formal complaint about your department for undermining a bank manager in his own branch." He turned on his heel and marched toward the VIP lounge. His shoes clicked against the marble, sharp, fast, angry. Audrey watched him go. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She didn't call anyone. Not yet. She opened her contacts, scrolled to a single name, and held her thumb over the call button. She waited. Patient. Still. Like a woman who had done this before, and who knew exactly how it ended. Gerald sat down at his desk in the VIP lounge and pulled up the account system. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, the confident pause of a man about to prove himself right. He typed in 4412 and hit enter. The screen loaded. Gerald's hand froze on the mouse. The account summary filled the monitor. Holdings, transfers, linked portfolios, subsidiary accounts. The numbers were so large, they didn't look real. They looked like a misprint. 8 figures in the primary checking alone, 9 figures across the linked investment accounts. The name at the top of the screen, in bold black letters, Audrey M. Carter. Designation, majority shareholder, Meridian Capital Group. Below that, a single line that stopped Gerald's breathing. Controlling interest holder, Whitfield and Associates, all regional branches. He scrolled down. His hand trembled against the mouse. The portfolio showed a completed acquisition dated 6 weeks ago. The same memo Nathan had read, the same memo Gerald had tossed into his recycling bin without opening, because the subject line didn't mention his name or his branch by title. Gerald stared at the screen for 11 seconds. His reflection floated over the numbers like a ghost haunting its own funeral. Then his phone rang. The caller ID read, Regional Director, Whitfield Corp. Gerald picked up. His voice cracked on the first word. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was clipped, cold, a voice that had already made its decision before dialing. "Gerald, this is Howard Bennett. I just received a call from Ms. Audrey Carter, the CEO of Meridian Capital Group and the new majority shareholder of this institution. She informed me that she arrived at your branch for a scheduled appointment this morning and was refused service, subjected to racial slurs, physically intimidated by your security staff, and had the police called on her based on fabricated allegations. Tell me this isn't true." Gerald's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Gerald." "Sir, there was a misunderstanding. She didn't look like, she wasn't presenting as someone who—" "She wasn't presenting as what, Gerald? Finish the sentence." Silence. The crystal clock ticked 3 times before Gerald spoke again. "I made a judgment call based on—" "Based on what? The color of her skin? Her sneakers?" Howard's voice tightened like a wire about the snap. "Let me be very clear. Miss Carter owns this bank. Not a share, not a percentage. She holds controlling interest in every branch in this district, including yours. As of 9 a.m. this morning, she has the authority to shut your branch down, restructure your entire staff, or fire you personally. And she doesn't need my approval to do any of it. Gerald's free hand gripped the armrest of his chair. His knuckles went white. The leather groaned under his fingers. You are suspended immediately. Effective now. Do not access any further accounts. Do not contact any clients. Do not leave the building until HR arrives to collect your credentials. Am I understood? Sir, please. 12 years. I've given this branch 12 years. If I could just explain. 12 years. And in 12 minutes, you destroyed every one of them. Am I understood? Yes, sir. The line went dead. Gerald set the phone down on the glass desk. It slid slightly on the polished surface. He stared at it like it had bitten him. His tie felt tight. His collar was damp. The framed MBA on the wall behind him, the one he'd positioned so every client could see it, now looked like evidence. Then he looked up, and through the frosted glass door of the VIP lounge, he saw Audrey. She was still standing in the lobby. Same spot, same posture, same jacket, same sneakers, same steady hands. But now she was holding her phone to her ear, speaking quietly. When she finished the call, she slid the phone into her pocket and looked directly through the glass at Gerald. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her stillness said everything her words hadn't. Gerald stood up. His legs felt borrowed. He walked out of the VIP lounge and into the lobby. The silence hit him like a wall. Every set of eyes tracked him. The tellers behind the counter, the clients in their leather chairs, Officer Bradley with his arms crossed near the entrance, the younger officer who had taken one step forward as if expecting trouble, the man in the pinstripe suit who had nodded along with Gerald's speech 10 minutes ago was now looking at his shoes. The woman who had whispered, "Can you believe she's still standing there?" was staring at the floor. The lobby that had felt like agreement now felt like a courtroom, and every face in it had changed its verdict. Nathan Cole stood behind the counter, arms folded, face unreadable. He'd stopped sweating. He'd stopped gripping the desk. He looked like a man who had been holding his breath for 20 minutes and had finally, completely exhaled. Gerald walked toward Audrey. His mouth worked before his brain could catch up. "Miss Carter, if I had known who you were." Audrey raised one hand, palm out, fingers steady. "You didn't need to know who I was," she said. Her voice carried across the marble lobby without effort. Every syllable landed clean. "You needed to do your job. You needed to treat a customer with basic dignity and respect. You chose not to, and everything that happens from this moment forward, every consequence, every headline, every sleepless night, you built it yourself, brick by brick." Gerald stood in the middle of his own lobby, under his own chandelier, surrounded by his own staff. And for the first time in 12 years, he had absolutely nothing to say. Mrs. Whitmore's phone was still recording. The red dot glowed steady on her screen. Gerald's mouth opened and closed twice before sound came out. "Miss Carter, please. This was a misunderstanding. A terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I had no idea." "Your badge," Audrey said. Gerald blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Your employee badge, your office keys, your access card, on the counter, now." Her voice hadn't changed. It carried the same flat calm she'd used since she walked through the revolving door. But the words landed differently now. They landed like gavels. Gerald reached for his badge with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. He fumbled with the clip. It took him 3 tries to unhook it from his lapel. The plastic rectangle clattered onto the marble counter, the same counter he'd blocked Audrey from reaching 40 minutes earlier. He placed his office key next to it, then his access card. 3 small objects in a row, lined up on the stone like evidence at a trial. "Rick," Audrey said, turning to the security guard. Rick straightened immediately. His posture changed, shoulders back, chin level. The same man who had been ready to escort Audrey out of the building 20 minutes ago now stood at attention like a soldier awaiting orders. "Please escort Mr. Hayes to the staff room. He is to remain there until HR arrives. He is not to access his computer, his phone, or any client files. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." Rick walked toward Gerald. The irony was so thick, the air tasted different. Gerald, the man who had snapped his fingers at Rick, who had ordered him to remove Audrey, who had told him to fabricate a police report, was now being guided toward the back hallway by the same guard, in the same lobby, under the same chandelier. Gerald turned once. He looked back at Audrey. His eyes were wet, not from remorse, from the sudden, catastrophic understanding that his career, his pension, his reputation, and his 12 years of carefully constructed authority had collapsed in the time it took to make one phone call. "Please," he whispered, "I have a family." Audrey held his gaze. "So did every person you turned away from that counter." Rick placed a hand on Gerald's shoulder, firm, professional, and guided him through the staff door. It closed behind them with a soft click that echoed louder than any slam. The lobby exhaled. Megan sat behind her desk, with both hands flat on the surface. Her keyboard was still open to the incident log she'd been typing, the one Gerald had ordered. Her eyes were red. Her bottom lip trembled. "Miss Carter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I should have—" "You should have," Audrey said. "Not cruel, not kind, just true." Megan nodded. She pressed her lips together and looked down at her hands. Audrey turned to face the lobby, the clients, the tellers, the officers. Every person who had watched, whispered, laughed, looked away, or stayed silent. "My name is Audrey Carter," she said. "I am the CEO of Meridian Capital Group and the majority shareholder of Whitfield & Associates. What happened in this branch today was not a misunderstanding. It was not an isolated incident, and it will not be treated as one." She paused. The chandelier light caught her plain gray jacket and made it look like armor. "There will be a full internal review of this branch. Every employee, every policy, every client interaction flagged for bias in the last 36 months. If anyone in this building has information about similar conduct, I encourage you to come forward. You will be protected." Officer Bradley stood near the entrance. He hadn't left. His body cam was still running. The small red light blinked steadily on his chest. He made no move to turn it off. The younger officer beside him shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his hand resting loosely at his side. Bradley caught Audrey's eye and gave a single nod. Not an apology, not an endorsement, an acknowledgement. The kind one professional gives another when the situation has resolved itself beyond what anyone expected. Mrs. Whitmore finally lowered her phone. She pressed stop on the recording. The video was 14 minutes and 37 seconds long. She looked at it for a moment, then slipped the phone back into her handbag. She didn't know it yet, but that video would be viewed 11 million times before the week was over. Nathan Cole stood behind the counter. He unclenched his hands for the first time in 30 minutes. He straightened his tie. He looked at Audrey, not with awe, not with pity, but with the quiet respect of a man who had just watched someone win a war without raising their voice. The video hit the internet at 6:14 p.m. that same Monday. Mrs. Dorothy Whitmore didn't post it herself. She sent it to her granddaughter, a 23-year-old media studies graduate named Sophie, with a single message. "You'll know what to do with this." Sophie did. She uploaded it to Twitter with a caption that read, "Bank manager tells black woman she stinks up his lobby and calls police on her. Turns out she owns the entire bank. Watch till the end. Hashtag Justice for Audrey. Hashtag Whitfield Scandal." By midnight, the video had 1.2 million views. By Tuesday morning, 4.6 million. By Wednesday, it had crossed 11 million and was climbing at a rate that made Whitfield & Associates' PR department work through 3 consecutive nights without sleep. The comment section became a courtroom of its own. "This man said people like you to the woman who signs his checks. I can't breathe. He told security to remove her before she touches something. This isn't ignorance. This is hate." 12 years managing that branch, and he never once read a corporate memo. That's not racism. That's racism and incompetence. Local news picked it up first. Channel 9 ran a segment titled "Banking While Black" that aired during the 6 o'clock broadcast on Tuesday. By Thursday, CNN, MSNBC, and The Washington Post had all run their own stories. The Post's headline read, "She walked in wearing sneakers. She walked out owning the bank." Gerald Hayes did not give interviews. His lawyer released a statement calling the incident an unfortunate misunderstanding rooted in security protocols, a sentence so carefully constructed it managed to say nothing and offend everyone simultaneously. Gerald's neighbors saw him pulling his blinds shut at 7 a.m. Tuesday morning. They stayed shut for 2 weeks. But the internal investigation told a different story. Meridian Capital Group hired an independent auditing firm, Blackwell & Associates, to review 3 years of client interaction records at Gerald's branch. The auditors pulled transaction logs, appointment records, security footage, and client complaint files. They interviewed 41 current and former employees. They reviewed every incident report Gerald had ever filed. The findings arrived in a 72-page document delivered to Audrey's desk on a Thursday morning, 14 days after the lobby confrontation. Gerald Raymond Hayes had denied service to at least 17 clients of color over the past 36 months. 14 of those denials had no documented justification. In 8 cases, Gerald had instructed tellers to redirect Black and Latino clients away from VIP services, using language like, "Suggest the general counter," or "Recommend our online platform instead." In 3 cases, he had called security on clients who had valid appointments. In 2 cases, the clients had been physically escorted from the building by Rick, while other customers watched. None of those clients had filed formal complaints. Most of them assumed it was policy. Some of them assumed it was their fault. One of them had closed a 6-figure account and moved to a competitor bank without saying why. 6 former clients agreed to provide testimony. Their statements were nearly identical. Different names, different dates, the same story. They walked in, they were looked at, they were turned away. They left quietly and never came back. One of them, a retired teacher named Gloria Reed, told the auditors, "I thought maybe I really didn't belong there. He made me believe that. He was very good at making you believe it was your fault." The report was forwarded to the State Banking Commission. Gerald was formally terminated on day 16. His termination letter cited gross misconduct, violation of federal anti-discrimination statutes, filing a false police report, and conduct unbecoming of a licensed financial officer. His banking license was suspended pending review by the State Regulatory Board. His pension, 12 years of accumulated benefits, was frozen. His name was entered into the industry's internal blacklist database, effectively ending his career in financial services. His photograph appeared on the front page of the city's largest newspaper under the headline, "The Manager Who Couldn't See Past Color." His wife filed for legal separation 3 days later. His children's school called to say reporters had been parked outside the building. The civil lawsuit came next. 7 of the 17 identified victims joined a class action complaint filed against Gerald Hayes personally and against Whitfield & Associates as an institution. The complaint alleged systematic racial discrimination, emotional distress, and violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. The plaintiff's attorney, a sharp-voiced woman named Patricia Holt, held a press conference on the courthouse steps.
"Mr. Hayes didn't just refuse service," she said into a cluster of microphones. "He created a system, a quiet, efficient system designed to make people of color feel unwelcome, unworthy, and invisible. He did it for years, and nobody stopped him because nobody was watching." She paused. The cameras flashed. Someone was watching on Monday, and now the whole world is watching. Whitfield & Associates settled the civil case for an undisclosed amount. Legal analysts estimated the figure north of $6 million. Gerald's personal liability was not disclosed, but public records showed a lien filed against his property within the month. His savings account, at a competing bank, was garnished to cover legal fees his insurance refused to pay. Officer Bradley faced his own reckoning. The body cam footage, which his department initially claimed had technical issues during the first 40 seconds, was subpoenaed by the plaintiff's attorneys. The full, unedited footage showed Bradley arriving, listening to Gerald's fabricated account without challenge, and approaching Audrey as a suspect before verifying any facts. An internal affairs review found that Bradley had failed to follow department protocol for bias-sensitive calls. He was placed on administrative leave, reassigned to a desk position, and required to complete 40 hours of community sensitivity training. His partner, the younger officer who had stood silently by the door, was cleared of wrongdoing, but voluntarily requested the same training. The police department issued a public statement acknowledging procedural shortcomings in the handling of the incident. It was not an apology, but it was the closest thing the department had ever issued, and it was printed in full on the front page of every local paper. The hashtag Justice for Audrey stayed in the national trending list for 6 days. It was joined by hashtag Banking While Black and hashtag Whitfield Scandal. Advocacy groups used the case in training materials. Law schools added it to discrimination case study databases. A documentary filmmaker reached out to Audrey's office requesting an interview. Audrey declined. She had never wanted attention. She had wanted service at a bank she owned. Everything that followed was built by Gerald Hayes, brick by brick, insult by insult, lie by lie. And the world simply watched the structure collapse under its own weight. 6 months later, the Madison Avenue branch of Whitfield & Associates looked like a different building. The limestone columns were the same. The brass letters still spelled the name above the revolving door. The chandelier still hung from the double-height ceiling. But everything underneath had changed. The VIP rope was gone. The frosted glass doors that had separated the VIP lounge from the general lobby
had been removed and replaced with an open floor plan. The plastic chairs by the water cooler, the ones reserved for people Gerald Hayes had deemed unworthy, had been replaced with the same leather seating that lined the rest of the branch. Every client who walked through the door received the same greeting, the same service, the same respect. No rope, no gate, no sorting. Nathan Cole stood behind the branch manager's desk, Gerald's old desk, now stripped of the crystal clock, the French press, and the framed MBA diploma. Nathan had been promoted 5 weeks after the incident. He'd been the only employee in the building who had recognized Audrey and tried to speak up. His first act as manager was to remove every photograph of former bank leadership from the east wall and replace them with framed copies of the branch's new service charter. A single page, 14 words. Every person who walks through this door deserves dignity, respect, and equal service. Megan still worked the reception desk. She'd been placed on probation during the investigation but was retained after cooperating fully with the auditors and providing testimony about Gerald's pattern of redirecting clients of color. She greeted every customer now, every single one, with eye contact, a smile, and their name if she had it. She kept a small card taped to the inside of her desk drawer. It read, "Silence is a choice." Rick transferred to a different branch, voluntarily. He told HR he couldn't walk through that lobby without hearing Gerald's voice snapping fingers at him. He worked security at the downtown location now, where he had enrolled in the company's new Equity Awareness Certification Program. He passed on his first attempt. Mrs. Dorothy Whitmore became something of a local celebrity. She gave 3 interviews, one to Channel 9, one to a podcaster with 2 million subscribers, and one to her book club, which she said was the only audience that truly mattered. Sophie, her granddaughter, was offered a junior producer position at a digital media company on the strength of the video's reach. She accepted. Gloria Reed, the retired teacher who had told auditors, "He made me believe it was my fault," received her share of the settlement and used it to fund a financial literacy program at her former school. She taught a class every Thursday morning called Know Your Worth. The waiting list had 43 names. Officer Bradley returned to active duty after completing his training. He requested reassignment to the Community Liaison Division. His first public appearance was at a town hall meeting where he spoke for 4 minutes about implicit bias in routine calls. He didn't mention Gerald by name. He didn't need to. Gerald Raymond Hayes was last reported living in a rental apartment 40 miles outside the city. He had applied to 9 financial institutions in 3 states. None of them called him back. His name still surfaced on the first page of search results, next to the video, next to the post headline, next to Patricia Holt's press conference quote. His professional network had dissolved. His LinkedIn profile had been deactivated. The life he had built over 12 years had been dismantled in 12 minutes, and the wreckage followed him like a shadow that didn't fade with distance. Audrey Carter never gave a public interview about the incident. She didn't write an op-ed. She didn't start a podcast. She showed up at the branch's reopening ceremony in the same gray jacket and the same sneakers she'd worn on that Monday morning. She cut the ribbon, shook Nathan's hand, and walked through the lobby, past the spot where she'd stood motionless while a man told her she didn't belong. She paused at the front door. She looked back once. The lobby was full, every seat taken, every face different. The building smelled the same, leather and lilies, but the air moved differently now. It moved like it belonged to everyone. Respect costs nothing. Discrimination costs everything. What would you have done if you were standing in that lobby? Would you have spoken up or looked away? Drop your answer in the comments, and if this story made you feel something, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it today. Hit subscribe so you never miss another story like this one.